Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. Seems weird to be saying it's a daily dose of Star Wars joy considering the topic that we are talking about in Return of the Jedi, which is that brief scene where two Ewoks are running and there's a giant laser blast and one of them is killed and the other one mourns over the dead Ewok's body. And even as an adult watching that now, I see that scene and it's striking in the sense that I can't believe that they spent that much time on it, that they actually had the scene to begin with. But I mean, for, these cuddly teddy bears to be running around, and obviously over the course of the last decades, we've come to think of them as murder bears and, all that, fun stuff about it. But at the time they were just this, very cuddly, it's kind of funny comic relief that they're also fighting all these stormtroopers and whatnot. But then there's this moment in Return of the Jedi where you see one killed and another one mourning over the body, and the amount of time, it's only just a few seconds, but it seems really long, and it seems like it is meant to make you stop and say, okay, this isn't just comic relief. These are creatures that are sentient, that have emotions that we as humans can empathize with, and they are just as key to the fighting that's happening and to the overthrow of the Empire as anything the humans are doing. The fact that Marquand and Lucas decided that they needed to sit on that moment is really kind of a striking thing when you sit and think about it. And now in the From a Certain Point of View collection, we have a story called The Ballad of Nanta by Sarah Kuhn that is about those two Ewoks. Specifically, Nanta is somebody who, and I think this has happened in another story as well, is part of one of Logray's classes and just can't quite get into it. And so I'm beginning to think that Logray isn't necessarily the greatest teacher of young walklings. But one of the things that ends up coming up is that Logray recognizes in Nanta the possibility that Nanta could become a story keeper, which is a position that the tribe doesn't always have, and sometimes they have multiple story keepers, but at the time of the telling, they don't have a story keeper. And I love the line in there about how, Nanta hears that word story keeper and is kind of marveling at how a word could sound so mysterious and yet also sound like the answer to a question he didn't know how to ask. Now, we are in spoiler territory, of course, just to give you that heads up. But Nanta's on the path to becoming a story keeper. It has been carving stories in a tree that has presented itself, as it were, in the forest of Nanta and seems very special. But as sometimes happens, other events in the world get in the way of that sort of natural progress. And in this case, the fight with the Empire gets in the way. And so Nanta is, not too excited about the prospect of fighting, doesn't have the same kind of skills to, help defend himself, let alone other Ewoks. And another Ewok, Ramba, discovers what Nanta has been doing and says, stick with me. I'll, be your partner in this. We'll work together. We'll keep each other safe. Everything goes great. They fight. And then there's a Scout Walker that shows up and they are on the run, and the Scout Walker shoots, and unfortunately Nanta is the one that gets hit and killed. And so Ramba ends up going back to the tree and adding little bits and pieces to the story that Nanta had been writing about the Bright Tree Village tribe. And they end up singing this song in the village of all the tales that Nanta had been documenting, but Ramba adds bits about Nanta, and it becomes a story about Nanta and how this courageous Ewok ended up fighting in the battle and helping to defeat the Skull Ones, as they refer to the Empire in their armor and whatnot, and also help the Golden One be victorious. And it becomes the Ballad of Nanta that is sung by various Ewoks in Bright Tree Village for generations. And it's just, this one, Sarah Kuhn did a really great job filling out this story, and it's a beautiful one. I would say that of the four that we're going to discuss in this particular run of stories, this one was my favorite. And I'll also say that the next time I watch Return of the Jedi and see that scene, I'm going to be thinking that it was the aspiring storykeeper that got killed in that, and I think it's going to actually have an effect on me when I watch Return of the Jedi the next time, which is kind of, what I think the best of these stories do, is just give you an additional layer that you can appreciate when you watch the movie. So that is The Ballad of Nanta. It's part of the From a Certain Point of View short story collection celebrating the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, and that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.